All right, I said I would show you something good, and now I will. So here is the CloudGuard Native through Checkpoint's Infinity portal. Sign in. And once I sign in, this is my Infinity CloudGuard Native Infinity tenant space, and with all my cloud accounts onboarded. This is the user interface that you're presented when you first log in. This dashboard can be customized any way you wish. This is you can switch for different stakeholder groups. You can create different dashboards for like your cloud security team or your cloud team or infosec or GRC or the CISO, the CIO. All of these can be customized, and these widgets are modified. But you can see that the idea is that you make it as user friendly and as meaningful as possible when people log in. If you have groups that are only concerned with a certain environment, then you would host and create some widgets specifically for them. You can see like your inventory, your top assets, things that have high alerts, have high severity alerts. And so for security groups with issues, security group being your primary security in cloud native that goes with the asset or the service, you can see trend lining. You can see if you have threat intelligence turned on and enabled, you can actually see malicious threats against your environment. And you can create all kinds of cool stuff like trend lines over time. You can risk score your adherence, your organization's adherence to your compliance rule set. So let's say you have 70% failing, but you improve that and you have now 99% positive passes, then your risk, you can modify this to show that your risk score is going to the green, almost 100%. Again, you can modify these any way you want. The first thing I want to show you is how you basically onboard cloud assets. So in this environment, it's a demo environment. All these cloud accounts are already onboarded for me. But in the reality, if you opened your tenant space and you hadn't onboarded any cloud accounts, you wouldn't see anything here until you did. So we can onboard cloud accounts in a couple different ways. We can onboard them one by one if you have a small environment or only a small group of cloud accounts that you're going to be onboarding. You can onboard a lot of accounts, even in like an org structure, using Terraform Service Provider for CloudGuard, or we can script it. And if it's AWS, we can actually use CloudGuard Control. We can use AWS Control Tower, so that when you're building AWS accounts using Control Tower, we can onboard those as well to CloudGuard. So it's super easy to add a new account. You just click it. You have two operating modes, one read only, one is read write. One, we basically curl the metadata, and we describe, we get the metadata and we render it into our environment. We assess it, we look at the attributes and we assess it. And we see this continually updated. And once you turn on continuous compliance and you attach a rule set to your cloud account, anytime anything changes, it'll immediately assess. And then anytime anything changes or updates or new assets are deployed into that cloud account, they will be assessed in real time. It's brilliant. You can also use read write. Read write protection gives you some additional function. There's some differences based on the cloud environment, if it's AWS or Azure or GCP. But for AWS, we can actually we can control security groups. You can actually edit them from the management console here from the CloudGuard. We can also do tamper protection for identity and access management rules and policies. We can also do network visualization using a thing called Clarity if network security is turned on. So either way, it's super easy. It takes a few minutes only. You would log into your AWS management account, your management console, go to identity and access management, create a policy. We tell you what it looks like. You can then just copy paste it, review the policy, save it, and the next thing you do is create a role. So when you create a role, we have a specific tenant space and secret, super secret, ultra decoder ring for your API, secret and key. And then basically we add a couple policies, and then the one that you just created, we attach it. We grab the role arm, we save it, save it, connect, and basically we start looking at assets in your cloud environment. It usually takes about maybe 5 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We're not really supposed to assess them until maybe about 30 minutes, but they'll immediately start showing up in your environment. You can look at the different platforms. You can look at protected assets. So once you onboard your cloud account, it will show up. All the assets in the cloud accounts will show up as protected assets. You can change. There's a ton of filters. You can do any filter you want. You can look at a look up by asset type. So you can see these are all the cool AWS assets that we assess with continuous compliance, and also we can go in there and see what they're up to. I'm gonna grab an S3 bucket real fast if I can find one. So I just want to look at the S3 buckets. In this case, I have a lot of them, 238, but I'm just going to quick show you that I can see from here if there's MFA turned on, if it's static or it's dynamic, and the status of this thing is on or off. So I'm just going to grab this this S3 bucket. I can see that there's his ARN. That's his identifier within his resource, within Amazon, his resource identifier. He's in Tokyo. I can see what the attributes of all of the S3 bucket are. What's really important is that people don't understand in organizations, especially large organizations, the security teams or the people that need to look at S3 buckets, whether they're secure, they don't have access into AWS Management Console. Typically, they're not given access. So this is the only way they can actually see the attributes and assess indeed compliance, assess the attributes of these cloud assets. In this case, we look for an attribute that says SSE, server-side encryption, should have a setting. In this case, it doesn't. So we're going to find out later on that this is basically an insecure bucket. So this is one thing we can see. We can tagging is a big utilization for cloud assets. We can search by tags. We can also do all kinds of cool stuff with tags. If there's any threats against this S3 bucket, we can see them right here if we're turning on threat intelligence. So if somebody was actively doing something malicious with that bucket, or we would see something that looks suspicious, we would see it in threat and security events. We can also see that immediately this S3 bucket, he failed. He's got some high severity failures. He didn't pass his compliance assessment because he doesn't have encryption turned on. He doesn't have logging on either. So he doesn't have any encryption on, and he doesn't have logging on. So we would want to go and fix this guy right away, right? And indeed, we could actually launch a cloud bot, which is an automated remediation that would go and fix this and encrypt this bucket on the fly and in real time. As soon as that finding shows up as failed, this is so egregious we wouldn't want to wait for a human or anyone to take action on this when we can immediately go and turn on encryption on this S3 bucket. There should never be a reason why S3 buckets are unencrypted, especially if they have public access. Indeed, I just wrote up a report that I think we now have the largest HIPAA breach, PHI breach so far this year. It was kind of like silently rolled out during the whole Colonial Pipeline and the other ransomware attacks, but this was a unauthorized access of an S3 bucket, and the data was downloaded, it was unencrypted, it was downloaded, and the data was deleted. And it's 3.25 million customer or patient accounts with their personal health information. This is a serious thing. There's no point in waiting for someone to get this notification when you can have a cloud bot go and fix this. And this is what the auto remediation is all about. So anyway, once you have all your cloud accounts onboarded, then you can see your resources as protected assets, which is so amazing. And then you can actually start doing some stuff. I can go and look at this, and indeed, once We have customers that start onboarding cloud security posture management for the first time. A lot of time they spend is researching and looking at what they see. What are these cloud accounts? What are they doing? What assets are deployed? What are some of the failings that are immediately found? What can they do? And they start talking to the cloud teams and doing some of their own kind of due diligence. And it's great because you can immediately, now that the cloud accounts are onboarded, I'm looking at these assets, they're protected assets. I can actually I can turn on continuous compliance and assess these guys in real time. I usually have to wait like 30 minutes. So let's go and look at a rule set and then we'll do it. So I can look at, we have all these rule sets built in for you. You can pull these off the shelf. I just searched for NIST over here. So I can clear that. And you can see that we have CIS and we have network security assessment, best practices, we have GDPR, CSA, SOC 2, your best practices and so forth. All of the things are there that you need. I will filter for platform equals AWS and I want NIST only. So here are my NIST frameworks. I'm going to grab actually let's take the CSF. So first I want to show you, these are the rules in the CSF. You don't build these and we don't hide them from you. They are right here and you can use them in one click. All I have to do is run assessment and pick the cloud account I want to assess. But basically you can see the rule, you can see the rule set ID, I can see more information about this, but you don't have to go and look up those control sets. That's so crazy. Have you ever built handmade Excel workbooks with compliance framework rules control sets? Is really not fun. And then trying to assess, that might work in some other world, but it's not going to work in cloud. But basically all these rules are built. So Kinesis, I can go down load balancer, should have. These are things that they should have or should not have. The rule, like I said, the rule is built for you. Let's search S3. Okay, S3 buckets. They should have secure transport, so they should have SSL. They should have server-side encryption at rest. They should have versioning MFA delete enabled. They should not allow actions for everyone. They should not allow actions, delete actions. There's a lot of flexibility you have with these. They should not be world writable. They should not be world listable, so forth and so on. They should be encrypted, as we already talked about. So I can go and look at this rule. This is the rule. S3 buckets should not allow lists. Let's actually go back to the previous one. Server-side encryption at risk. So we'll just stick with this one since we looked at that Tokyo S3 bucket. S3 bucket should have encryption, server-side encryption rules. Again, this is the rule here in CloudGuard. This is the rule ID. This is what it should be. This is the remediation. You need to select an encryption method, either AES 256 or AWS KMS. This is the documentation that tells you if you don't understand what to do, go read about it, which is also good because sometimes people that are on security teams are just now taking on cloud security and they need to learn more. How did we query it? Again, this rule is exposed to you. It's human language readable, and they're the control sets for the NIST CSF that enforce this. These are the control sets that would enforce this. The cool thing is I can see GSLs, I can copy and paste these and run these anytime, anywhere I want. I can modify these, I can create my own custom GSLs. We don't hide anything from you and we don't make it difficult to see. If an auditor came to you and said, I need you to go run these 3 control sets on every cloud account that you have, you could do it in 2 minutes. In other platforms, it may not be very easy because a lot of times you can't get to the rules, you can't see the rules, you can't modify the rules, and you can't run ad hoc specific rules on the fly. The other cool thing is, if you like this, but you don't need all these NIST CSF rules, there's 176. Maybe you don't have Kinesis, you just want to take it out. You can clone this rule set, take out the Kinesis stuff, which is available right here in the JSON. You can just grab a JSON editor. I could take all the Kinesis stuff out, save it, and then I have my own custom rule set that I can run. No sense getting a bunch of failed findings. If you are not specifically required to enforce this, it's just a framework that you adopted, then cloning and modifying and creating your own custom rule set is super awesome. So let's go ahead and run this assessment now. I'm just going to pick this production account. Hopefully he won't take very long. All right, I just got the assessment and here are the results. I ran the assessment, 71% of the tests passed, which is kind of good, I guess, for a first go. This is a lab environment, remember. You can see like there's some really good stuff for, like visual kind of graphics about what are the things that pass, what are the things that fail, why are they high. There's a lot of high failures though. So let's just start up at the top. This is a assessment that's showing you S3 bucket should have versioning MFA delete. We looked at that write actions, SSL for transport, server-side encryption at rest. So I had 80 that tested, 76 were non-compliant. Man, I would go and fix this with a cloud bot. I would tell a cloud bot, do you think that I want to have a person go and fix all these? First, I'll show you that one thing I can see where the attribute is turned off. So I can see the cloud attribute of this asset, like his specific attributes are here in the entity viewer. You can see encryption, there's nothing there. There should be something there, either AES 256 or AWS KMS. So I could go and manually go into all of these cloud buckets, these S3 buckets, but would I want to do that? Probably not. I can do a cloud bot, and the cloud bot will go and go and encrypt these S3 buckets for me. This is so egregious. I don't want to wait for a human to take action. But if I wanted to do and go fix by hand, then I could actually see which S3 bucket I need to go to, where to go to, what cloud account is he in, what's his role or his bucket arn, and also the most relevant things that I need to know. That shows he's non-compliant. He's been for this S3 bucket. All right, so that's pretty much compliance. How we do continuous compliance is we just say, okay, I'm going to take a cloud account. I will pick one. I will take a rule set. I will do S3 bucket. I want to create a notification. And this is where I can do a lot of cool stuff. So I can get alerts immediately in runtime. I can do a schedule report. I can filter out only certain things that I want. Maybe I just want to look at the tags and the entity IDs and the severity. I can send a separate finding for each time I see it. So if somebody fixes it, once it fixes either by a person or a cloud bot, then the finding will go to past. I want to get notified that it passes now too. I'll also see anything that changed. So if somebody deployed new S3 buckets, I would see those. I can get an SNS notification for each new finding, which is awesome. I can also send to HTTP endpoint. So I can take findings from CloudGuard. I can send them out to Sumo Logic, Jira, ServiceNow, Splunk, so forth. If it's not here, it doesn't mean that we don't support it. It's all supported by API. It's just these are packaged up integrations that are ready to go off the shelf. I can send directly to Slack or Teams. And sometimes we have integration or synergies with the cloud provider that we send the information to the security center or the security hub. And that happens sometimes, and sometimes we actually do quarantining action using tagging, which is really cool, pretty cool. And if you want to talk about that, just let me know. I'm not going to save this, but once I would save this notification, then this cloud account would be what we call is in continuous compliance. That means that rule set is always going to be assessed in real time assessing that cloud account. And then I have history on that. I get my notifications. And if there are failed findings, I can actually create a cloud bot to fix them. So let me show you something else too. Under assets, if you want to see all of the assets, no, I'm sorry, it moved to posture management. If you want to see the GSL builder and all the assets, here, like by the type of cloud account, you can see what the cloud assets that we actually support, how we can assess them and so forth. They're continually being added. And then also you can actually build your own if you want to be crazy and wild. You can build your own GSL. You can copy and paste it from our GSL builder. Here, it's in our resource guide, and I'll show you in a second. You can just grab it if you want to like run rules for S-Links. Our documentation is there. You can get to it. We also have release notes. So again, we developed this platform. It's a platform technology. We're doing continuous integration, continuous delivery and development. And you will see that there are like new rules, there's a change, there's enhancement, there's a fix. You'll see those in real time. You can also see the service provider for Terraform, and you can learn about our API. All the APIs are listed here for you. If you want to do something and communicate with the CloudGuard platform via API, the APIs are here. And then also, if you want to check out CloudBots, this is so cool. So this is where I can literally create a bot. So basically, he's just going to trigger in AWS example, we can do it for Azure and GCP. But let's say back on that S3 bucket, anytime that I find an S3 bucket, I just want to do a cloud bot. And like he would go fix those 80 non-compliant S3 buckets that I found just a few minutes ago. He would fix those in just a matter of a few minutes. So basically, we send the finding to a SNS topic. It launches, triggers a Lambda function to go remediate that. He actually remediates it, and then he does an SNS notification and updates the remediation finding. Very slick, very cool. And there's cloud bots for a lot of things that are already pre-built for you, and I will show you. So again, all of our documentation is under resources, and you can go in there, the GSL library, the API reference, Terraform service provider, cloud bots, and so forth. So let's move on quickly to workload protection. So we talked a lot about across the board of all the things we can do. Compliance is super important for cloud workloads. Cloud workloads, as we already discussed, include everything from containers to functions as a service, so AWS Lambda functions, and all the things that are upstream and downstream from a Lambda function. It doesn't exist by itself. He's usually triggered by something, and then he's got a downstream. He might write, he might get, he may put, he may update a metadata service. He's doing a lot of things. So you want that whole cloud workload to be assessed in context of that function, not just the function itself. So we can assess containers and functions and code and infrastructure as code. Kubernetes environments, that's the orchestration piece. There are components like pods and nodes and kube master and those things that need to be protected, the kind of the management of the Kubernetes environment, but also admission control. So containers don't get admitted unless they are compliant. And also for ingress, when you have containers services running in production as part of a cloud workload, you have traffic going in and out of that environment, and we can assess that as well as web applications and API workloads. So as part of a cloud workload. So this is just showing you the containers and serverless dashboard. So if we want to look at serverless functions, again, what's super cool is we could Lambda DVSA admin get orders. You can see that he's actively scanning this configuration. It's doing vulnerability assessment of the code for vulnerabilities and embedded secrets. It's looking at IAM hardening. So deep code flow analysis for application hardening and least privilege access, and then automatically generate least privilege IAM roles. It's turning the workload protection, the runtime firewall is turned on. This is so cool. You can run like a function firewall that we call it function self-protection. So in runtime, we can protect this guy as well. And then he does behavioral learning for intrusion protection. He'll actually look at the behavior of this function as part of a cloud workload while he's running, and it looks at the entire cloud workload. I can auto protect, so if I see something, I can do real detection and real blocking. If I want to, I can block when I see behaviors that I don't like. I can see the version, the function self protection version, and I have some findings, and the posture looks like it's about a 40%. So let's get the findings. This is pre-assessing this function before it ever runs. So let's take a look at it. There's some findings here from a compliance perspective. This guy looks like a permissive role. He has redundant permissions. And if we would look at the remediation, I could copy this to the clipboard and basically go and fix this function on the fly. Lambda is not by himself. So there's some type of trigger in this case. Uh, there's an S3 bucket that's associated with this. There's CloudWatch logs. There's two issues there, and then it looks like he's writing to a DynamoDB. So let's look at the S3 bucket issue. He's got redundant permission. We already found that. CloudWatch, again, redundant permission, and then the DynamoDB redundant permission. So we can see that there's some things to be done with him. He doesn't have any security alerts detected by runtime. Let's go ahead and look at some Kubernetes environments. So I'm just going to grab one here. Threat intelligence, image assurance, admission control, and runtime protection. Let's go ahead and take a look at the protected assets. You can see in this cluster, we deploy an agent per basically node that we run. We do runtime with the Kubernetes environment and actually assess the environment. You can see we can see the deployment itself, the images, and so forth. The other thing we can do is we can look at policies. Threat intelligence. We can look at threat intelligence, mission control. So this is some pretty cool stuff. You can see that mission control, we actually have rules that you can just build out of the box for your Kubernetes pod. So namespaces should only be deleted. There's a trust chain, image tags are fixed. So no mutability of tags, which is super important. Basically, we can also look at threat and security events. There are some issues with behavior, a malicious signature event. And let's see. Dev file system CloudGuard agent has detected suspicious behavior. What's the unusual activity? There's admission control, like a trust chain protection. Images must be deployed from a predefined list of registries. To avoid supply chain attacks, all images must be deployed from pre-approved list of registries. And you can read more about that. The last but not least, we only have a few more minutes. There's tons of stuff we can do with Cloud Workload. Again, you onboard these, it's super easy and quick. If you look at the onboarding, pretty much across the board, we've tried to be super easy for onboarding. We use Helm chart for onboarding, and basically you can see that. And then we have a CI/CD pipeline. So if you want to like plug this stuff into your developer tool set, then you can use the CLI tool framework for, we call it shift left. But basically, all you need is an API key. So we need to generate API key and secret for you that you would go and put in your GitHub and actually check out in your GitHub, and then you can run this stuff from your GitHub repository. If you want to learn more about this, just let me know. And then last but not least, threat intelligence. So you can see security events and events. Security events are could be malicious. They can be things that are going on, like uh, suspicious behavior. These are based on MITRE ATT&CK framework. So you can also see that somebody requested an API request. So you can see events. You can also see threats. This is an API request originated from a malicious IP address. I would probably check that out straight away. And that's from the CloudGuard best practices rule set. And then I would also see, like, here's an example of a critical. This is malicious traffic detected from a malicious IP. And you can investigate with a single click and actually get some information. So it looks like it's an elastic load balancer. You can isolate the node. So we can look at things that are originated. So API calls, key creation, creation of buckets, all kinds of really good stuff. What's going on in your cloud environment. Like there's a decrypt, so you can see if audit trails are turned on. And these are some of these events are normal and part of an automation process. Like this looks like it's part of a VM or an auto scale group. So instances with a load balancer. But some of these would probably require some investigation. And this is also required that you work with your team, the cloud team that is doing DevOps or infrastructure as code and deploying these things and see what things are actually supposed to, these are things that are supposed to be. Um, and some things are not, especially if you see something that's with a no malicious IP. We get that from our threat cloud, and we know that that's a bad actor, and then literally that's something to investigate. Even if it's a normal process, there shouldn't be a reason why a malicious IP was connecting with maybe uh, a scheduler or something. In this case, there's like an anonymous principal that created an access key. Those are the kind of things that you can research. So with that, I'd like to end this session, and I appreciate your time, and I hope that you will give us a shout, and then we can maybe run a set up a CloudGuard environment, onboard some of your cloud accounts, and security assess those for you. Put some guardrails in there.